All right, hey folks, how you doing? Wanted to talk to you a little bit today about kind of a new focus that we have at the Phoenix Dream Center. LA, I think, has been doing this for a little while. Some other dream centers are doing it as well, but it's in response, I know, to just our. It's a strange dynamic. It's heartbreaking, but you work so hard on outreach to help people. Then you realize you got to have somewhere to put people, and then you get a building, and you're so excited, and you build amazing programs, and then you fill those programs, and then you're dealing with the outreach stuff and the program stuff in the context of 100 people a week that you got to turn away and walk through your lobby completely homeless. That's our story. That's the Phoenix Dream Center story here. You deal with the waiting list, and so at some point your mind, your heart begin to just out of sheer desperation and angst, you just say we gotta prevent this thing. Like, how can we stop the flow? Like, you can imagine people standing on a river, and the dream center's like on a river, and it's just this sea of, wrong metaphor, but it's just this river of people floating by, and like you're desperate, you're grabbing all the people out that you can, and drying them off and cleaning them up and helping teach them not how to fall in the river again, and you're like, this is what you do. But some people get by and you miss them, but at some point you're like, why the heck are all these people falling in the river upstream? Like, what's going on upstream? And so that's what prevention is for us, is our work upstream. And so we have two dominant prevention efforts going on right now at the Dream Center here in Phoenix. And so I wanted to talk through this with you. One of those is in the area of foster care. And so Arizona has a particular problem with foster care. It is getting better. I think the last 2 years, I think we can all honestly say that it's getting better. But at times, still, we have anywhere from 18 to 20,000 children in the foster care system here in Arizona that aren't getting placed, that aren't getting adopted. Their cases are moving slow, and then behind the scenes on that are, just a couple thousand caseworkers who have, thousands, hundreds of kids on their cases, and they're burned out and overburdened and under-resourced, and because of state cuts and things years ago. It's a mess. And so we began our foster care prevention program about 3 years ago with just that one heart. We started with our human trafficking program had girls who had babies or who had kids and were either in the process of losing them or had lost them or very close to losing them. Like, they get placed with us because they have behavioral issues, and so then we, according to the state, and then we're like trying to fight to save their kids, right? Trying to keep them in the family. And so I think a lot of our work was born out of that, but that birthed into our new prevention and reunification program that I am so proud to say the first year that program kept over 300 kids out of the foster care system. Now, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the 18,000 that went in, but we kept 300 out. And what we found was that more importantly, it's a very scalable program. It's a program that does not require the large buildings like the Dream Center. It just requires a couple people to replicate what we do, a couple churches to replicate what we do. So that 300 kids saved was with one truck and with one staff and a couple volunteers that were taking beds out, refrigerators, different things. I'll talk about that in a moment. But what we found was that our foster care prevention program and reunification program was a very sustainable program and a very scalable program. So how it works for us, we started with the story, and we took the story to major donors, started to cultivate that story with our major donors. We've talked about that in other episodes. And one donor came forward with kind of a bittersweet gift. It was an end-of-life gift. He was passing, and he knew it, and had a heart for foster care all his life. And so he gave us a significant amount of money, a six-figure number, for us to get it started, to get it going. And with that, we hired a person, bought a truck, and got some beds, some bed frames, and refrigerators. And so how the foster care prevention model works essentially is this. We have a truck, and it doesn't have to be a box truck, ours just happens to be, and a manager to kind of manage everything going on, and a few volunteers to lift stuff and do stuff. But essentially our manager is in good with our child welfare system here in Arizona, Department of Child Safety. And whenever a family comes across her desk that is about to lose the kid, like they're days away or weeks away from losing their children into the foster care system, the DCS, the state caseworkers, literally pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, we've got a family, we think that'd be perfect for this program at the Dream Center. And so what we're finding is that cases with kids that have severe neglect, severe sexual abuse and physical abuse and violence, I mean, these aren't necessarily the cases that we're getting called for, but in Arizona, and I've seen other surveys across the United States, this certainly holds true, different percentages, but in Arizona, the sad fact is, of those 18,000 plus kids, the statistics are that somewhere around 90% of them were not what you would typically think of for why kids are being removed from families. It's not sexual abuse, it's not violence, it's not physical abuse, mental, emotional abuse. It's this category, this qualifying category in our state statute called neglect. And sometimes it's that they're leaving the kid in the house while they go off to school or to work or different things. But more often than not, what constitutes as neglect is you don't have a refrigerator for your family, and you don't have a bed for your kids. They're sleeping on the floor. You don't have enough food in your cupboards and in your refrigerator, or if you even have a refrigerator. And so somewhere along the way, the typical scenario, somewhere along the way, the state has become involved. Kid comes to school dirty or not eating, malnourished, not sleeping well. Caseworker finds X, Y, and Z are not, in the equation, and it constitutes neglect. And if they can't remedy it, they're going to take the kids away. And so we're not dealing with tragic cases of abuse or neglect again, but these are cases where these are the perfect cases for the church, like for us to get involved and to help. And so what we do is we come in with the caseworker, talk to the family, and see what they need to become compliant, and then offer our services to help with that. And literally, we lease a mattress and Brooklyn Bedding donate thousands of beds to us to give to these kids and to these families to help keep them compliant. We also, though, we don't just sort of drop ship stuff out. We also, though, pull that family onto our case management roster until such time as they're signed off clear. And so sometimes the reason they don't have because that's what you got to look at next. There are very often reasons they don't have the refrigerator, the bed. And for us, what we're finding many times is that it's a young woman, who is fleeing some sort of a domestic violence situation for herself, or a bad situation, has enough money, is working to get into an apartment, but doesn't have any other money, and can't find cash assistance, doesn't know how to navigate the system to get furniture and things like that, doesn't have family to support, and so she's struggling to keep up. So we'll case manage that young family for a few months' time, help her to get her kids into a good daycare that's local there, and just help with the nuts and bolts type things, help with getting things going. And we are well over 1,000 kids now here 3 years in that we've helped. At any given time, we are case managing 100 families every month and keeping those kids out of the system. And so much so that we have grown, we're bursting at the seams. We have rented a building to store stuff, just to store the new beds and the new furnishing and the refrigerators and stuff. And so this little warehouse that we're renting, so I mentioned a minute ago you don't need a building, but as you grow, you'll need some place to store all the stuff, some place to queue up all the stuff. And we just ran out of room at the Dream Center. I mean, there was literally no more room for the work we were doing. We're doing so much of it. And so, for a while we rented storage containers. We've got 4 40-foot storage containers we're renting right now, just for the volume of families we're helping and things. So it made sense for us to, instead of renting those every month, we rent a little building. And so the new model is calls come in to the director, and that goes to the order fulfillment team, if you could think in terms like that. And we basically put together a package of this family needs this amount of food and these baby clothes and diapers, and they need a bed and they need a crib, and load it up on the truck, and that order's done. Those are the orders we're going to fulfill this morning. It's been an amazing system. It's absolutely scalable. We have many partners here in Phoenix doing it, but we'd love to have more. Contact us if we can help maybe your church get a prevention program going. But we know certainly in Arizona here, prevention for foster care is an absolute necessity. Now, one other thing I'll say with that is we've got the prevention going, but as a side note to that, we also are raising up what we call safe families. In the event the parent does need to lose the child, members from our church, families from our church, take the kids in for a 6-month period. You can Google Safe Families. It's an amazing program here in Arizona, and I'm sure there are programs elsewhere. And so we run a Safe Family program through our program that kind of orchestrates the temporary foster care situation. So a kid or the kids may go be with someone from our church for 6 months. During that time, there's tons of visitation and tons of co-meetings, but it gives that parent up to 6 months to just really, okay, I'm going to save some money, I'm going to get into a bigger place or a different place, or I'm going to get a better job, but I can't take care of daycare, and really helps these families the right way. So I think that 1-2 punch of doing the prevention, but also in the event families do need to lose their kids, like we know where they're going, and they're going into a family that we have within our church has been a great. I know it's been a great success for the families we've served, and for us and for our church. So talk to us about prevention. It's on that chip, but we'd love to see that happen in your community. God bless you guys. Bye bye.